Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Cathedral. The Sunshine Cathedral is a different kind of church where the past is past and the future has infinite possibilities. And with that, we invite you to come and worship with us here on Sunday mornings at 9 and 10:30 a.m. at 1480 Southwest 9th Avenue. Now, I invite you to come in and worship with us here at the Sunshine Cathedral.
First reading today is from Sirach. The Eternal overthrows the thrones of rulers and enthrones the lowly in their place. The Eternal plucks up the roots of the nations and plants the humble in their place. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
Our second reading is from the Wisdom of Monica Baldwin. What makes humility so desirable is the marvelous thing it does to us. It creates in us a capacity for the closest possible intimacy with God. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
God is with you. And also with you. A reading from the Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, indwelling.
On one occasion when Jesus was going to the house of the leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, they were watching him closely. When he noticed how the guests chose places of honor, he told them a parable. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not sit down at the place of honor, in case someone more distinguished than you has been invited by your host. And the host who invited both of you may come and say to you, "Give this person your place." And then in disgrace, you would start to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit down at the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he or she may say to you, "Friend, move up higher." Then you will be honored in the presence of all who sit at the table with you. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted. This is the gospel, the good news.
Well, we started 2013 by calling this for Sunshine Cathedral a year of prayer. That we were going to intentionally and throughout the year be dedicating ourselves to prayer. And we've done that in lots of ways. We've had sermons on prayer. We had a class in the spring on prayer. It was a powerful class. And out of that class emerged a prayer group. And that group receives your prayer request every week. And of course, the staff prays for your prayer requests every week. And they're in the sunburst for the congregation to have and pray over throughout the week. We had a Lenten prayer lessons. It was emailed to our email list every week throughout Lent. And we, of course, have a prayer-filled service twice every Sunday morning. And throughout the year, we have a midweek prayer service that took August and September off, and coming back in October, midweek, Wednesday, 7 o'clock, a midweek prayer service. So we have dedicated this year to prayer, and the year is now 2/3 over. We are starting the third trimester of the year today. And since we have been praying together, there have been reports of people who have experienced healing in their lives and breakthroughs and inspiration and comfort. People have been able to let go of old baggage, and people have been able to take leaps of faith and move forward. And other people have faced incredible difficulties. And they didn't know if they'd sort of prayed up these difficulties, if they'd sort of stirred up a metaphysical hornet's nest with all this prayer, or if somehow, because those troubles were going to happen, being prayed up is how they have faced them and been able to survive them with dignity and grace and resilience. And so we've had all of this amazing stuff. And in addition to all of that, there have been all of these great reports throughout the world. Marriage equality, gaining momentum, state by state and county by county, and in the military and the IRS. I mean, there have been, now I'm not saying that because we have upped our prayer game this year that the world is a better place, but I'm not saying it. Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of committed, thoughtful citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And so here we are dedicating ourselves to prayer this year, praying more deeply, more intensely, more methodically than ever before. And sure enough, amazing things are happening in our church, in our lives, and in our world. And if you are committed to continuing that for the last third of this year, expecting miracles along the way, would you say yes? Yes, 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 yes. Yes, 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 yes. Well, then great things are going to happen. Whenever a congregation spontaneously bursts out into song, that is a sign that good things are on the way. Jesus was born into a territory that had been occupied by Rome for almost 60 years. Talk about facing difficulties. Talk about having to face difficulties with a spiritual base so that you can be resilient, so that you can see good and have hope and experience joy even when the sky seems to be falling. This is the world that Jesus is born into a territory that had been occupied by Rome for almost 60 years at the time of his birth. And then, about 29 of the Common Era, after about a year of ministry and activism, 3 years if we're looking at John, 1 year if we're looking at the Synoptic Gospels, about a year of ministry and activism, Jesus is arrested for sedition. And he is tried. He's trying to empower people and give them hope in a hopeless situation and help them experience freedom in their exile. And for that, he's considered a threat. And he is tried for sedition, and he is found guilty, and he is executed by the means of torture the Romans preferred for runaway slaves and would-be insurrectionists, crucifixion. And they even make it very clear what the charge is. When people were crucified, they would put on the cross what the charge was. And above the cross, you would see the Latin letters, the Roman letters, I-N-R-I, Jesus, King of the Jews. He is someone who people have attributed to being a new king, an unauthorized leader over against the empire. And that is sedition. And for that, he has to go. Now, why did they think that? Why did they think that he was a self-declared king trying to raise an army that could threaten Roman power? Well, we'll see in a bit. But in any case, Jesus is born into this world of empire. And it is the world of empire that kills him. About 37 years after Jesus' execution, a revolution breaks out, which expels the Roman forces from Jerusalem, the holy city. And part of that uprising included attacking the local aristocracy, the elite, the people who had power and privilege and importance and wealth. And those people were the temple priesthood. And there were also governors and kings and tetrarchs and ethnarchs and knights and various levels of honors bestowed upon people. And this aristocracy in the region also included the tax collectors. And these kings and governors and priests and tax collectors were all loyal to the empire. They were part of the imperial system. They represented the empire in the region. And those who prospered under that system obviously didn't mind. But the oppressed masses, they hated the empire and its puppets who enforced its imperial rule, especially those who were of their own people who enforced the power, the system of power and privilege, power over and privilege over against them, that they benefited by hurting their own people. And so not only was the empire in general hated, but those who locally represented it were hated. And so when the Roman soldiers were expelled from the holy city in the uprising of 66 of the Common Era, the Jewish aristocrats who benefited from the imperial system were also held to account for the suffering of the people. Now, this brief insult to Roman power and authority was short-lived. Only 4 years, in fact. Because then in the year 70, it is a number you have heard at least 70 times in the last 7 years. The year 70. Say 70. We all know 70. In the year 70 of the Common Era, the empire strikes back. And Jerusalem is destroyed, and the temple along with it, for the second time in its history. For the next 30 to 50 years, writers created narratives called Gospels in order to share good news with people who were broken down from despair. People who had lost their holy city. They had lost a number of people they had thought to be or could be messiahs. They had lost the holy temple. They had lost hope and dignity and autonomy.